How does it feel to like now be in this body, in this self and space?
My transness has been the most beautiful experience of my entire
Yes.
life. To
And
get
say
to,
it loud, say it proud.
yes, like if I could have told 15, 16-year-old Rowan, hey, by the way, this is who you are in like
Yeah.
a few years, I think I would have like pooped my pants.
Oh man.
What's poppin'? My name's Shy Friend.
My name is Rowan.
Hi, I'm Ian from Apollo Western Cup.
My name is Dana Demento.
My name is Katie.
We are from the House of Ebony, and you're watching
Queer in Alberta.
Welcome back to Queer in Alberta, the podcast where I chat with 2S LGBTQIA+ Albertans from all across the province to share their stories. If you are new here, welcome to Season 4. My name is Kels Valenzuela Delamarter. I'm your host. I use she, her pronouns, and this podcast is filmed and recorded right here on Treaty 7 territory, home of the Blackfoot Confederacy and the Otipemisiwak Métis government in the Alberta District No. 1. It feels so good to be returning to another season of telling queer stories from right here on the Canadian prairies. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you might be noticing that we are in some different surroundings today. A big shout out to the folks at CKXU here at the University of Lethbridge in Lethbridge, Alberta, for letting me use the space to record a little bit of Season 4 for all of you. If you have been following along with the show since day one, so much love to you. Thank you for making it all the way to Season 4 with me today. I recognize that there has been a bit of a break, but believe me, it was worth it. This season is jam-packed, and we have such a fun adventure in store for you. We chat with folks from, of course, Lethbridge, Calgary, Edmonton, but we also head to some new places in Alberta, including Fort McMurray and Sylvan Lake. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is it like being queer or trans in Sylvan Lake and Fort McMurray? Stay tuned, besties, because this is the season that you'll find out. This season, we are keeping things fresh by talking with artists, advocates, drag artists, of course, but also we're hearing from the oldest organized queer sports league in North America, which just so happens to be in Calgary. We're going to chat with the first and only all-Black drag house in Alberta's history. And of course, we're going to hear more from BIPOC and trans experiences this season. So I feel very, very lucky to have sat across from the amazing guests that I did all throughout filming of Season 4. And I am ecstatic that finally, after months of waiting, you get to listen and tune in. If you are joining us for the first time, Queer in Alberta started during the COVID-19 pandemic, I think around 2022. I was a graduate student at the U of L and feeling especially isolated from my queer identity here in Alberta. I started to make content online, vocalizing these experiences in humorous or silly ways, and I actually ended up attracting a much larger audience than I originally anticipated. Everybody echoed the same sentiment, that they also felt alone living here as a queer or trans or even two-spirit individual in what we call Alberta today. I found it really, really strange that all of these people living in Alberta felt so separate and isolated from one another. So I decided to start talking to folks, and that was how the Queer in Alberta podcast became what it is today. Of course, the podcast had a lot of help, not only from amazing folks wanting to share their stories, but from Telus Story Hive. The podcast has been funded through their voices and video podcast grants for the past 4 seasons. So as always, shout out to Bessie Telus. Thank you so much for supporting queer, trans, and two-spirit stories here in Southern Alberta, and for giving this little Filipino-Canadian a platform to share these stories on a much larger stage. This season is going to be really familiar to what you've seen before on the show, but something that's new is that in the end of the episodes, we've left some time for audience Q&As. At the end of every episode, you'll get to hear questions directly from you asked to these guests to find out everything you've been especially curious about. To kick off Season 4, we are heading to Fort McMurray, Alberta, my friends. To be honest, I've never been to Fort McMurray, but I really hope by the time this season is airing that there's plans in the works to make that change. Especially after meeting and befriending our guest for this episode, Rowan. Rowan and I first connected even before I knew that he was the face behind TransRightsYEG. We'd both been booked in drag at Bowie Night, a really fun David Bowie-themed drag show that was all kings and hosted in Edmonton, Alberta. It was also one of the last shows at Evolution Wonder Lounge in their original location, and it was my first show in Edmonton as a new drag king. I was so impressed with the talent in Edmonton that night and had so much fun. but I'd already been thinking about the podcast and how I'd been wanting to expand further north and to hear more diverse stories. So it really was kismet and honestly an act of fate when I found out that that's where Rowan grew up and where he lived today. In this episode, we cover a lot of ground. We talk about indigenous queer experiences. We talk about what it's like to be queer and trans living all the way up in Fort McMurray today. We talk about his activism, TransRightsYEG of course, but also his drag. We also have a really honest conversation about what it's like to be a specifically trans person in Alberta today. This episode could not be more perfect to kick off the season. I'm so excited to introduce you to my new friend Rowan and for you to learn everything about what it's like to be queer and trans in Fort McMurray, Alberta.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is so fun.
I'm so happy to be here.
I am so jazzed, especially because you made the commute all the way down here literally today. I think that's superstar behavior.
I mean, as a he, him lesbian, it's very in my realm to drive 5 hours for something.
It's our culture, I feel. I am not a he, him lesbian, but I see you. Game recognizes game.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're doing amazing, doing it for the representation that everyone needs. But I'm so happy, as I said, to have you here. And I think you have such an interesting story because, yes, you're representing, talk about it, Fort McMurray for the first time. But you grew up in Nova Scotia, went to Fort McMurray, then Edmonton and back. That is some gallivanting, some queer gallivanting, I think.
I've been getting my steps in.
A little bit. If you have a Fitbit or something, you're crushing everyone.
I forgot my Fitbit. I don't have a Fitbit.
Okay, bonus points redacted. But, I think I wanted to open with, if possible, something so sweet that you told me about when we were brainstorming for this episode, which is highlighting the beautiful relationship you have with your grandparents. Yeah, a moment here, we're all blushy. But you told me a story about flying back to meet them and a really sweet airport greeting that they had for you.
Yes. So I had a very complex relationship with my grandparents growing up. Just due to my in-home family environment, I was not allowed to have a relationship with them. So I went about 13 years not talking to them. Spoiler alert, when I came out as trans, my relationship with my parents did not go super past that.
Yeah.
But that did end up meaning that I felt like I could now talk to my grandparents. And one random day, my grandfather sends me a friend request on Facebook, and he was in Florida at the time. I know, right? He was in Florida at the time, and my grandmother said that like they were all sitting around this table, and he was just like talking about how before he dies, he wants to see me one last time or talk to me one last time because it's been so long, and I'm an adult now, and my grandparents spent so much of their time and money and energy trying to have me in their life. And he sends me this friend request and I accepted it. And he looked at my grandmother and was like, we need to go to the ER now. I think I'm going to die. Because he was saying that he just wanted to talk to me before he died. So he legitimately thought he was about to get struck down.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway,
Grandpa
he ended up
stressed.
Yes. So then we start talking and they're like, we would love for you to come back to Nova Scotia and spend a week with us, get to know us. Before that we came though, right before I was supposed to go, I ended up my partner and I at the time broke up. This was in 2022. So I ended up going back for 8 weeks.
Oh, that's a great amount of time to visit though.
It was.
Really sink in.
It was wonderful. So they had not known me when I started my transition and said, hey guys, by the way, changing my name. We never had that formal discussion.
Yeah.
He sent me a friend request. My Facebook was updated to the name I use now. And that's all they've ever called me. And at the time, I was only using they, them pronouns. And I was coming down the escalator at the airport and I look over and they're holding a sign and it says, welcome home, Rowan. And Rowan was colored in the non-binary flag colors.
God. I don't know if it's just the end of the day, but I'm getting teary-eyed just even hearing that.
Well, I mean, they're in their 70s. And
exactly.
Every single day I hear some form of the older generation or people are older, they just don't get it.
Yes.
My grandparents get it.
They're there.
They are. And they
rooting for
love
you.
me and accept me and cherish me. And they're so proud of me. It's been so wonderful to build this relationship with them again because family rejection when you're trans sucks.
Yes.
It's really hard to get through. So then to have people embrace me so wholeheartedly and my other grandmother as well is wonderful. We ended up going to Elton John together in Toronto on his final tour. This tattoo is a little crocodile rocking out to
Grandma's a
commemorate
diva.
that trip with her. And
Did she get a matching one?
I am trying to bully her into
I
it.
think
She
you
said she was
should.
going to when we were there. She's like, I'll get a tattoo. And I bet she's going to
Whimsy.
watch this and say, I never said that. Nan, you did.
And it's on Optic TV that you did.
It is on
now.
Optic TV right now.
Mhm.
So let's get you in the chair.
Would love to
yes.
chat with you.
I would love her to get a matching tattoo, but
Yes.
this one is enough for the both of us as
For
of right now.
For now.
But they both of my grandmothers and my grandfather, my other grandfather passed away when I was a kid, but
Yeah.
all three of them are just such a wonderful addition to my life and have taught me so much about love and the continuity of love and how time doesn't have to stop that, and you can rebuild relationships and get close with people at any time if you want to.
Yeah, like things, that's the beauty of time, right? Things can soften, things can change. And I'm so happy that you shared that story for exactly what you said, that so many people in our community, I think especially, can be dismissive of older people. Like, oh, they're all backwards because, not my words, but just in general, that it's a different generation, a different way of thinking. They'll never accept me. But your grandparents are a living testimony that don't stereotype them.
Exactly. And like, I think when we give up on people and we think that they can never, or like we generalize that a group of people can never be progressive or accepting, we are ending the road to progress that we're on.
Yes.
Like,
I can't believe you're only 24. Like, you're so wise, Diva. I'm sitting here and I'm like, teach me. Yeah.
Yeah, my grandparents are wonderful. And like, they have the internet. They can learn stuff, and they do learn stuff. If old people can learn crazy conspiracy theories, they can learn what pronouns
Preach on it. We are capable. We are multifaceted. Well, anytime your grandparents want to come on Queer in Alberta with you, they are always welcome, especially if they have a cute little tattoo to go with it.
Incredible.
But you know, Rowan, we start off episodes of the show with a fun segment called Quickfire Queer, and I think it's time for Quickfire Queer. So, like I told you, it is 5 fruity questions that you have 5 seconds to answer. And I think this will be easy breezy, beautiful cover girl for you.
Okay.
Let's get into it. Number 1, if Fort McMurray was a drag artist, what name or what would their name be?
There's a neighborhood there called Thickwood, so it would be a drag king named Thickwood.
Thickwood! Okay, why is that not taken yet already?
Well, my boss does
Is thinking about it?
Well, my boss is a drag queen. My boss in previous years would go to the radio station and put someone in drag and has a list of names from the different neighborhoods. So Thickwood is on the list for the future.
I'm so excited. When is Thickwood's debut? I want a ticket, front row.
I paid an Etsy witch $12. I hope his birthday is soon.
Yes! Okay, manifesting in the universe. Maybe by the time this is out, we will see Thickwood in action. Question 2, BB, is if DadbodRod was to run for premier, what would your campaign slogan be?
Truck nuts for everyone.
Okay, I knew you were going to have that. I knew it was going to be so easy, and I'm so happy that I asked you that question. Number 3, is there a local community member who inspires your drag or activism, or both?
I need more than 5 seconds for that one.
Oh my god. Pressure cooker. 4.
Elixir.
Who's like in Edmonton that I met at the show. Tell me about Elixir a little bit for folks that don't know Elixir.
Elixir is a drag thing that hosts a show called Fat Magic, carving space for fat bodies in creation and performance, and through that has created such a space for liberation and celebration of fat bodies. And I just love them for that.
Yes, and like when I met them, they were so lovely. And like, once again, people hear about this show and they're like, what does Alberta even have? We have Elixir, we have Fat Magic, DadbodRod. Do not stereotype us. Do not stereotype us. Question 4, and we're almost done. Describe the vibe and energy of Edmonton's queer community in 3 words.
Fruity. Cold, warm.
Fruity, cold, warm. Fruity, cold, warm. Are we standing by that?
No, we're not. No, we're not.
Fruity, cold, warm. The more I say it, I'm like, what are we getting at here? It sounds like a drink at a cafe.
It does.
Like
I
the
think,
cherry cola chai that I just had.
Yeah, I think actually if I could not stand by that, I would say fun, fresh, exciting.
Wow. Okay, here we go. Fun, fresh, exciting. Diva, they're going to roast you for that one.
Okay, I didn't mean cold emotionally. I was just thinking of words about Edmonton, and it's really cold
and then
now.
you panicked and went, wait, but she's also warm.
I meant warm emotionally.
Yes. You know
Cold
what?
physically, warm emotionally.
I love a quick fire queer that you have to explain. Your last question is very simple. It's the same as before, but for Fort McMurray. Are you going to go warm, cold?
No. Creative, a necessity, and brave.
Yes, tea. However, I'm still just wrapping around the difference. One was fruity, warm, cold, and then creative, necessity, brave.
Well, in Fort McMurray, there's only 5 drag artists.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's true. I
prior to when we started with Buffalo Pride, the last time they tried to do Pride, someone burned Pride flags in the parking lot.
Ugh,
so the 5 of us there, it's easier to capture 5 people than the hundreds.
Well, you know what? I just thought that was the most fantastic quickfire queer. A round of applause. You did it. And Edmonton, go easy on them. That was a good answer.
It might have been a big fire, but I am from Fort McMurray.
Where should we start? Maybe let's start with growing up queer in Fort McMurray, because I'm interested about what that was like for you. Because me growing up queer in Bonnyville, which is like your oil field sibling, it was an experience, to say the least.
Fort McMurray was not as bad as people would think for me. I know individuals who had much harder times than I did. But I came out in 2016 when I was 15 in high school. And that was motivated by the Pulse shooting in June of 2016. I remember watching that on the news and feeling like I couldn't react the way I wanted to because I would have outed myself. But then seeing people talk about I always think about this one mother talking about her kid and being like, my kid died in this bar and I don't know if they were gay or if they were just at the bar with their friends and now they're never going to get to tell me. And I decided at that moment that I wanted to live as out as I possibly could for the people who would never have that chance. So then on coming out day 2016, I came out. I ended up being GSA president through all of high school, which anybody who knows me knows that is not surprising. Honestly, anyone watching this podcast so far probably knows that's not surprising.
This is why you had your premier slogan on lock. You've been doing this government stuff since the beginning, honey.
So I had an interesting time growing up internally with dealing with stuff like internalized homophobia, internalized transphobia. I was really in denial about my gender diversity, but for about 6 months in high school, at school, I was using they, them pronouns, and that was a very liberating experience for me. So of course, now in the world we're in, thinking about the kids who can't do that or can't try that, I felt like I needed to take that time so that if I chose to come out to my parents at that age as being gender diverse, that I would be 100% sure, because I could say I tried it.
Yeah.
It felt right. This is who I am. But that didn't end up being what happened.
And if I can, I also feel like I remember thinking similarly at around the same age when I was maybe 16 through 18 and first realizing that I was queer, that I didn't want to tell anyone unless I was quote unquote 100% sure, like you said. And I feel like that's a reflection of understandings of queer identity from that time frame where it was like, okay, you have to then choose one thing, be that way forever. But now part of what I love about queerness and my understanding of it is how it's so broad and can change and fluctuate, because it's a lot of pressure to put on yourself that whether you're straight, whether you're queer or what, that this is just it that I know about myself forever.
Totally. I think for me it was more of I feel like if I tell my parents that I think I'm trans, that's going to be explosive.
Yeah.
It's not going to end well. So I have to be prepared. I have to know if I for sure want to detonate this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I knew at the end of using my they them pronouns at that time that I was probably going to grow up in transition, but I felt like I had to be content and that I would probably never get to transition because I was so scared of losing my family.
And then now there's so much story there, but even just skipping ahead a couple of chapters, hearing you say that, how does it feel to like now be in this body, in this self and space?
My transness has been the most beautiful experience of my entire
Yes.
life. To get
say
to
it loud, say it proud.
Yes, like to get to say this is who I am in
Mm.
such a proclamation of gender affirming care, of like the legal aspects of it, of the social
Yes.
aspects of it, and to continue proclaiming that. Like there's such a misconception that transness comes from despair and that transness is like a solution thrown at people when they're super depressed and happen
Right.
to be queer. But for me, my transness is an act of love. It's an act of saying I care about myself enough that I want to live in the body that feels harmonious to me. And like I chose not to get nipple grafts after top surgery, so I have heart-shaped nipple tattoos.
Oh yeah, I love that.
Because I wanted to wear my heart on my chest. And I think my top surgery scars accomplished that as well. And I am just so proud that even like reflecting on what that period was like as a young person, like I guess as a kid, I'm still a young person. And now, like if I could have told 15, 16-year-old Rowan, hey, by the way, this is who you are in like a few years, I think I would have like pooped my pants.
Oh man, it's the same where it's like I don't even know if my particularly 16-year-old self, still like in denial about everything, would have coped with it well because that was the world and life I was in.
Yeah.
But I would like to think that, you know, seeing into the future could have some hope, some happiness that things get so much better.
Absolutely. But yeah, like in Fort McMurray at that time, I also, aside from being GSA president, I ended up getting involved pretty heavily in Wood Buffalo Pride at its inception. I was one of the founding board members.
Which
So it's
so slay. Come on.
So it is also really cool to be back working for Pride now as the man I am, as the like seeing this seed I planted when I was literally a child now be a full-fledged nonprofit is so cool.
Fully full circle moment. When you mentioned Wood Buffalo Pride, that's a great place because I was thinking we should address, I mentioned DadbodRod, but you do so many things.
I do.
You've got Wood Buffalo Pride, TransRightsYEG, which I think many of the listeners will be familiar with your work there. Let's do a quick overview of those different spheres in your life.
Yeah, so Wood Buffalo Pride is where I work full time. I'm the Indigenous and Rural Outreach Coordinator there. So my job is to work in our 6 rural communities, all the way up to Fort Chipewyan, which is like super northern Alberta.
I've never even been anywhere near there.
You can only drive there in the winter on the ice road. Otherwise, you have to fly in.
Oh, that's so sickening.
Yes,
it is so sickening.
I love Chip. I love the people there. I love the warmth there and the community there. But I work full time.
Cold, fruity.
Yes. I work full time. Providing opportunities for connection to the queer community, to our rural communities, but also within that culturally safe spaces for Two-Spirit people in the region.
That's so amazing. I remember when you were telling me about that work and I was like, again, more places I've never been. And so it's a real window into what initiatives, what's going on in the community. I think it's fantastic. But then, come on, my original introduction to you, the one, the only DadbodRod.
Yes, I started doing drag about 4 years ago now, in September of 2021. And I started doing drag because I wanted to try masculine expression and like have an excuse for people to use he, him pronouns for me. Once again, before I jumped into transition, I had to try it to make sure, okay, I know this is going to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Let me see how it feels and then see where I go from there.
It's pretty common for some drag artists, right? Whether it's queen, thing, king, sometimes it's that first step, first experience.
And yeah, DadbodRod has been with me through it all.
What a name.
It's, when I picked my name, I was not as comfortable with the body that I have at that point. And I was like, I feel like if I can make fun of being fat before other people can, then
Claim the
I'm
power
in on
in
the
it.
joke. Yeah. But now I'm like, no, I love who I am. I love having a dad bod. It's awesome. And it's great to be a drag king that takes up a lot of space.
Yes. And like you can tell, like I've only seen you perform at that show that we did together, which I think about it all the time. It was so much fun. But the way you moved on the stage, like you were just there for a good time and to like revel in the body, in the experience, in the song, and it showed and communicated in it. So I had so much fun watching your
Thank
number.
you.
But okay, DadbodRod, I'm obsessed with him and want to perform with him again. Now we have, of course, TransRightsYEG, which amazing work.
Thank you. Yeah, TransRightsYEG is something that was born out of necessity. I started this project in January of 2024. It was January 31st that the government of Alberta posted this like 7-minute video saying that they had plans to help our province by instituting 3 pieces of anti-trans legislation. I had a lot of people in my life who like wanted to watch the video but felt like they couldn't because like they'd start and then they would just get so upset that they had to turn it off.
Yeah.
And it was like incredibly triggering to see somebody gaslight an entire community like this. So I made a summary of it, and then people were like, can I send this to other people? And I was like, well, I'll just put it into a graphic and post it. And that was the first post on TransRightsYEG. And I intended it only to be a space for information. And I just kept telling myself, like, in January, like, if a protest pops up, I'll go. I'll like help out if I can. And then as like the day went on, nothing was happening. And I was like, well, people are angry now. People want to do something now. Maybe I should organize something.
What can I do?
Now here we are.
Yeah. Yes, here we are indeed. And like I have seen so much of your work even like reshared by friends in Southern Alberta. Like it might be called TransRightsYEG, but I think it's really become a space for the community to rally. And we even have up over here, actually, because it's like some people might be listening and not watching the podcast. Can you describe what's behind us over here?
Yes. We have one of my lawn signs.
Which I'm obsessed with it.
Which was made in collaboration with Public Interest Alberta. They funded all of the lawn signs, had them all produced, handled, picking them up. Brad from Public Interest Alberta, if you are listening, I love you.
Icon.
But TransRightsYEG, I felt like people needed a way to show publicly that they support trans people, because I know for myself, like prior to the first rally, I really struggled feeling like people like I knew that people cared about trans people. So I thought a lawn sign was a great way to go and a great way to show support and spread the word that we're here, we exist, we're like running, we're doing stuff. So this sign says, my Alberta is an inclusive one. It has a blue, pink, and white cowboy hat, blue and pink stars on a white background. And then the bottom says, I stand with trans Albertans.
It is such a great image too. And specifically, like, it's yeehaw, sheehaw, Alberta. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a song by Orville Peck with Katie Lang to, is it Just a Kiss?
I think so.
You know what song I'm talking about?
I do.
It's so like yeehaw cowboy gay, and that's what I think of every single time I see this. It's perfect.
Well, I mean, like cowboy culture historically was very queer, very queer. So when I was thinking about like what sort of image I want to, you know, share and how I want that to make people react, it was like so many trans people feel like they need to leave the province. I myself feel that way right now. Like I don't feel safe living here.
And that's honesty. That's being honest.
And it's okay to feel that way. But we shouldn't have to live here. We hear so much about like Alberta's interests or like doing things for Alberta. What about everybody who disagrees? Because my Alberta is an inclusive one.
Yeah.
My Alberta does not discriminate against immigrants. My Alberta believes in a free Palestine. My Alberta believes in land back. My Alberta is the people around me who show that people can be queer, people can be leftist, people can be brave.
Yes.
People can be inclusive.
And I love that because, again, so much like I've been really privileged to travel now across the country speaking about the podcast specifically or my work in queer history with museums. And quite often there's that suspicion or skepticism, right, of the stereotype of Alberta is all one way. And so I think it's so fantastic that you help to give Albertans a place or a theme, a lawn sign that could help them show, actually, that's not the case. There's more than meets the eye here.
Like, that is not the case, Ellen.
Yes, Filipino Ellen for the moment, except for no. But that's so funny, Rowan. Way to take me out of it.
But I mean, like, I love Dakota Johnson. I'm gay. What can I say?
Did you dress up as Dakota Johnson for Halloween? Because I feel like,
No,
did you see that
I
trend?
did see that, but I went as Will Schuster.
Okay, you know what? Next year, if it's still trending, I want to see it, especially the Limes edition of Dakota Johnson. But we are getting so off topic.
But
Bring it
yes,
back.
I made these signs as well. Like we wanted something that could withstand the Alberta weather. So we went with
True.
Yeah, we went with the Coroplast, and it's so meaningful to me to like drive around Edmonton and like see in a window one of my signs or see in someone's lawn one of my signs. At the time of recording this, there are still signs available at the Pride Center of Edmonton. So if you do want one, you just have to go during drop-in hours and pick one up. They're free. And yeah, like I feel like because of the narratives of Alberta and honestly because of the rise in hate crimes, it's really easy to feel like there's nobody here who cares.
Yes.
But when people can literally say, I stand with trans Albertans, that makes it pretty clear.
It makes it clear, and now my mind is just, again, the heritage part of my brain. Have you donated one of these to any museums or anything yet?
I haven't donated one of the signs, no. I did bring a button with this on it to the archives in Toronto when I went in May.
Nice.
Yeah, I would love to donate one of these signs somewhere.
We should. I would be happy to introduce you to some folks.
Yes, please do.
Because that's history, baby. But I'm so happy we had that overview of TransRightsYEG because, again, I've admired your work for so long, which is so funny that I didn't even realize you ran the account. I was just like, hey, you're from Fort McMurray, and I really loved your drag. Do you want to come on the show? And you went, by the way.
Fun fact.
Fun fact.
Yeah, there's a lot of people even in Edmonton who don't know DadbodRod and TransRightsYEG are the same person.
The veil is lifting today after this, honey.
Yes.
They are not going to be separate.
The worlds have collided.
They have collided, yes. Well, that's perfect that you say that because my next thing I wanted to ask you about is kind of exactly that. You mentioned that moving back to Fort McMurray, it's two worlds colliding. It's life before and now everything coming together.
It's really complex.
I can only imagine.
It's really weird to see the people that I know and I recognize, and I feel like I can't go up and say hi to them because they obviously, from the look on their face, have no idea who I am. And first of all, that's tea because what do you mean I'm passing like that or I look that different right now? I mean, like, I guess we all look different than we did in high school somewhat.
Less.
But like
in my case, what an improvement. Puberty hit me like a truck in first year university.
Yeah. So like it's really weird to feel like I almost feel like a ghost sometimes where I'm like, I'm seeing these people from my past and like I can't say hi to them. And that's probably a me thing because I could just go and have that conversation and be like, oh, by the way, I'm a man now. And there's been a few times where I'm like at a house party and I've had to say that to people like, and it's just like a quick introduction. Yeah, we went to high school together. I'm a man now, by the way. Because like, I don't know how people are perceiving me. I don't know if they are remembering who I am, like, what do they know? Have they been following along? So it's like, it's really weird. But also because like I told myself that I would never go back to Fort McMurray. And largely that was due to in part that my parents were living there at that time. And I just didn't really want to run into them. But then I got invited back after they moved away to perform in Pride last year.
Right.
And I went back and I was like, I'll see how it feels. And it felt nice because the people who did stay in touch, did follow along, did know who I am now, were so happy to see me and so proud of me. And a lot of those people are people who I was on the board with when we started, who like saw me as a young person and really believed in me and really valued my queerness. So I have a wonderful queer family there. I'm so lucky to know the people that I know there. But I think it says a lot about the power that we can hold. We're allowed to go back to hallowed ground.
Hallowed ground.
Like we are.
We're describing Fort McMurray as hallowed ground. I'm obsessed.
I mean, like when you transition, like a lot of people do leave the life they had behind because it's easier. It is hard to have those conversations. It's hard to be recognized. It's hard to know if someone that you have positive memories with is now going to react negatively seeing you this way.
It's even the same, like not to the same degree, but similar with me going back to Bonnieville. Different era, different life, and I do feel that way. And
it's hard to confront who you were, in both a positive and negative way, but I'm really grateful that I did go back. I like this time last year, I was super unemployed. I had left a job that was not the right fit. They told me that I couldn't share my pronouns at work.
Which is
crazy.
unbelievable. Like, was this a queer organization?
No.
Okay, if it was queer and they're telling you that you can't, anyway.
Yeah. So then I was like looking for jobs. I was applying everywhere. I was like, I don't even know what to do. Like, and with Buffalo Pride posted the job that I have now, and I thought I'll apply. If it feels wrong when I get an interview, I can turn it down. Got the interview, felt good, and I was like, if it feels wrong, if I get the job offer, I'll turn it down. Got the job offer and was like, oh,
here we
crap.
go. Buckle up. It's real. Yeah. I think, but the key thing that stood out to me there is even when you were describing going back and it feeling nice, I feel like that's a little bit of how I felt this whole like experience with Queer in Alberta and traveling more in Edmonton specifically for years because it's so close to where I grew up and I have family here. So I spent a lot of time in Edmonton as a kid. I was like, hard no, anything north, just so many memories. I don't want to be there. But I've been like stubborn about and you know, kind of like avoiding acknowledging that I've had a great time and have really been enjoying this city in ways I never have before.
Yeah. And there's such a misconception that like there are no queer people in Fort McMurray. There are no trans people in Fort McMurray. There's a vibrant and beautiful community there. And I'm so lucky to be a part of it.
And like that's exactly one of the things that I think I said to you when we first connected. I was like, I don't know anything about Fort McMurray Pride except for I am hearing in the grapevine exactly what you said, how amazing the events are for Pride, the community itself. So why don't you tell me a little bit more about what that's like there?
So we have like so many monthly events like as an organization. It's ridiculous. My calendar
Booked.
is booked and busy.
We don't like the email. We don't want to look in there.
But like my whole staff team, like we all just feel so much pride, pun intended, I guess, in the work that we do. He's is a funny king. He is a funny king. And like we do like monthly recurring events. We have support groups there for people from the trans community, their caregivers, as well as our Two-Spirit and Indigiqueer community. We do tons of different events. We do like employment support. We do one-on-one support. We do training. That's our longest standing program.
Stacked.
And we also do like weekly art drop-ins for youth. We just really try, because we're the only 2S LGBTQ plus serving organization there.
Crazy.
So we try to like recognize isolation's a huge problem in the North. Seasonal depression's a huge problem in the North, but really just like this letting the rhetoric seep in that there's no one like you there is really hard. So we try to do what we can to support the queer people that do exist there, because queer people exist everywhere. Yeah. So we run our Pride Festival all through the month of June. We had 40 events in our festival this year.
Unbelievable.
There are only 31
How do you
days.
sleep? I'm just thinking that. I'm like, what even? It is Gay Olympics, honestly.
It is Gay Olympics.
Yeah.
Like, do not call me in June. I am not answering.
Got it. I won't take any offense when my DM is not read.
Yeah, you're not hearing from me in June. I am conscripted to the Pride War.
Yeah. But, you know, on top of that work that you're doing in general, helping run Pride, specifically, as we said, you're the Indigenous and Rural Outreach Coordinator. So you are working both within Fort McMurray and surrounding areas, specifically with Indigenous communities.
Yes. So when I had like gotten the opportunity to meet my grandparents again, it was shared to me that my grandfather's family is Indigenous, and that was not something that we knew.
You knew, yeah.
So I like had spent a fair amount of time in my time at university taking courses as they related to the Indigenous community that were offered by the University of Alberta, and had a very like academic understanding of the colonization that had been done to Indigenous people. And when I found out that I was Indigenous and had no idea, all I could think about was the fact that my family didn't decide they wanted to do that. This was something that was taken from us, and something that, due to the mechanics of colonization, I didn't know who I was, because that was something that had to be hidden to prevent further violence from being imparted on my ancestors. So I felt a deep responsibility to not allow that cycle to continue.
Yeah. And if I may, just to be clear for folks that maybe aren't fully understanding what you mean by the mechanisms of colonialism, and to make sure I'm following too.
Yes.
Are you talking about like your family not passing on the knowledge of your heritage through the generations to have you unaware of it as family so that you
Yeah.
weren't,
So from my understanding, my family had to hide
Yes.
indigeneity to prevent
This is what I'm trying
my
to say.
ancestors from having to like go to residential schools or like deal with other violent intervention from the Canadian government. And that led to my grandfather not knowing who he was for a long time, but then being able to find out. And I just felt like when I found this information out with what I knew about how colonization happened, like there were no Indigenous people who just decided, I don't want to have my culture anymore.
Well, who would?
Exactly. So finding this out, I was like, I know nothing. I feel so like this is so jarring. And when I think about how this had happened, I don't think it can continue. Like I feel so much responsibility to my ancestors to, now that I know this information, to make sure that my ancestors further on don't have to not have that culture as well.
You mean your descendants?
Yes, my descendants.
yeah,
Well,
I was like,
ancestors go in both
both ways,
directions.
both
yes,
ways,
but
yeah.
descendants, yes.
Yeah.
So my descendants don't have to live in this limbo, I guess,
And
but
be devoid
also
of knowing who they are.
yes, because when we look at like decolonization and when we look at like trying to move towards reconciliation, we can't do that with allowing the project of killing the Indian and the child to continue, because that is what happened to my family.
Yeah.
And because I am now the final product of that goal of not knowing who I am, not having had the opportunity to learn any of my culture, and still like what I have been able to learn and what I have been able to connect with has been a very pan-Indigenized experience, because I'm living in Treaty 8 territory and that's not where I'm
your
from.
territory. Yep.
And like, so when I applied to this job, I was like, hey, this is my situation. I think this would be a great opportunity to connect with more Two-Spirit people and explore my spirituality and cultural identity more in that pan-Indigenized way, but still better than absolutely nothing and floating in nowhere. And the Two-Spirit community that I've been able to connect with and serve and spend time with has been so beautiful. And coming into that along the same time as my transness was a really interesting experience, because I just kept reflecting on the fact that like hundreds of years ago, this is something that would have been valued in me and not something that would have been rejected the way that it has or condescended the way that it has. And that's led me to feel more empowered in my own personal reconciliation with my ancestors, but also in my connection as well.
We wanted to spend some time chatting about something I find really interesting, and it's the idea of decolonizing homophobia and transphobia. So I really appreciate this, Rowan, because until now, I often thought about decolonizing my queerness from the lens of like thinking about what did my ancestors do before colonization? What were the roles like with gender, that sort of thing? But now it's also thinking about how can I understand the attitudes of people around me today and how that might be influenced by a colonial history.
Yeah, like something that I've been able to learn in my time through my job, but also just like in community, is that when residential schools are being justified, part of the justifying force was the kidnapping of multiple Two-Spirit people, bringing them to, I believe it was the Crown, and saying, look, these people don't even know what gender they are. We need to act now. And that contributed to the segregation in residential schools of gender. That contributed to a lot of the behaviors that were taught, what was punished, what was praised. And when we look at like when homophobia and transphobia arrived here, when Two-Spirit people started to be devalued, it is the time of colonization and like Jesuit colonization primarily. So like taking biblical values that had never been here and saying that like these are law.
The only law.
Yes, the only law. And anyone who strays outside of this is uncivilized, is a savage, needs to be punished and harmed for this deviation. And when we like try to approach how to dismantle homophobia and transphobia, we also need to recognize that for some individuals, these were quite literally values beaten into them. Even individuals who are outside of Indigenous communities.
Yeah.
Like even when we look at people of the global majority from countries that also had colonization imparted on them, these are values that also have been left behind as remnants of that harm.
Mm-hmm.
And when we want to like move towards a place of better livelihoods for queer and trans people, that has to come without a blanket approach. We have to look at individual circumstances, individual situations, and say, how did we get here?
Yes.
And where were we before we got here? And like, I've been very grateful through my job and through the opportunities that I've had to see that work in action of saying like, let's find the traditional ways where Two-Spirit people were valued. And in that dismantling and helping people to realize that these weren't things that you have felt ancestrally, we can move towards a better world and a world more accepting and welcoming of Two-Spirit people, but also one that is less shrouded in the impacts of colonization.
And I'm thinking about the story that you told me about maybe running or tabling an event with rural communities around Fort McMurray, and then Indigenous folks coming up and seeing Two-Spirit on a pamphlet or something, and raising it up and going, oh, you know what, that was like a relative of mine, and having that moment of connection there, like that must be so special.
It is so emotional. It reminds me of my grandparents when I see an older person be like, oh my God, my brother was Two-Spirit, or I knew someone Two-Spirit when I was young. Or like the one that always echoes in my head was this elder in one of our communities. I believe it was in Janvier. And she had like come to our table and she was like, Two-Spirit, I haven't heard about that since I was a girl.
Wow.
And like this is an elder in front of me. So this has been many decades since she has heard this term, but she heard this term. She is familiar with this concept. She's familiar with this way of being, because it has been here forever.
And it even makes me think of like earlier, you made a comment about, what was it exactly? I think it was you were saying that you were the final product of colonialism. I didn't get to say it in the moment, but it was showing me just like this example here of her seeing Two-Spirit and remembering those memories. You may be in that sense, yes, the final product, but also you are proof it didn't work.
Yes.
Like reconnecting and finding that it wasn't powerful enough to take that away from you.
And I can only be proof that it didn't work if I continue to reconnect.
Yes.
And if I deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. I know how I look. I know that I do not look like an Indigenous person. I know that I have not had a lot of opportunities to connect with my culture. I have grown up without those opportunities. I grew up not knowing who I was. I know that I am not the sole representative voice of Two-Spirit people. I don't feel that way. But like I do feel that it's important to not allow that project to continue.
Yeah.
However that needs to look. And it takes a lot of like a lot of talking to elders, a lot of like being in community to continue to feel like confident and okay with the reclamation that I'm on. And it's like very stressful. Because like I am so scared of like scrutiny or of like speaking over someone. Because like this is something new in my life. But then I also have that catch-22 of like the fact that I feel so scared of this is also one of those byproducts of feeling like I am not enough to do this. And like I think of some of the Two-Spirit people that I know who like I've heard the phrase over and over again that like the blood remembers, your blood remembers. So like even if I grew up without that in my recent memory, there are still ways for me to find my way back to who my ancestors are.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I just keep getting flashes a little bit of like, again, not the exact experience, right? But me being biracial, so much of what you're saying sounds similar to struggles I had when I was first reconnecting. And I think there is such a responsibility for us that maybe if I am mixed, for example, that when you go to connect with your culture, you do it with intention, with respect, with humility. And it's not enough to just be, I think, Filipino on my own. You have to be with community, have people witness you, claim you, and teach you. That has been a game changer in me learning more of my language and understanding more of the maybe funny cultural slangs or etc. And so, yeah, I can understand people that are afraid, imposter syndrome, all those sorts of things. But the door is there. You have to be brave enough to push it open and
Mhm.
to come with all the maybe moments of discomfort when you're learning and fumbling, because that's the only way you can grow.
And like giving up on it is not the reason, or
No,
is not the answer. Sorry,
no,
yeah,
it's not the
giving up,
reason.
giving up is not the answer.
Mm-mm.
And like I can see this value in other people, and it takes a lot of like talking to myself, but also talking to others, because what you said, like culture
Mhm.
is defined by community.
Yeah.
Culture cannot be an individual
No, not in
experience.
isolation.
No, so like being able to touch grass
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah.
Particularly sweet grass. But
Yes.
I'm grateful for what opportunities I have had
Mm,
since reconnecting as an individual. I'm so grateful to the people I've met.
mm,
One person in particular stands out to me right now. His name's Bowie. He's also
mm.
trans.
Love you, Bowie.
I love Bowie. I met Bowie at a conference in Ottawa a few years ago.
Uh-huh.
And then we were lucky enough to go back to Toronto on another conference this past year, and to
Amazing.
see him again and get to like talk to him and share in our experiences. Like there's about a group of 4 of us who all are Indigenous and queer, and most of us are gender diverse.
A theme. A
Yes.
theme.
And it's just so beautiful to talk to people who
Mm.
can understand what I'm saying, especially when I feel like
Yes.
I am alone in what I'm feeling, or like I
Mhm.
shouldn't be feeling what I'm feeling. And then I talk to someone who's known who they are forever,
Mhm.
and they also feel the same way. And I'm like, oh, okay, good.
It's like a coming home and a giant exhale, right? Because, yeah, I think especially when maybe you grow up, whether it's separated from your culture or in a smaller community, of course, that feeling of loneliness is just hyper to the 9s. Yeah.
Absolutely. And like it is hard being in Alberta and not being Indigenous to anywhere here.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like my ancestors are Mi'kmaq people and French settlers.
Mhm.
And I don't have the opportunity to talk to Mi'kmaq elders
Yeah.
often. And
Yeah.
that is hard when I am trying to reconnect with my culture in
Mhm.
particular.
I hope that in the next, like by the time this is out, I hope that there's been maybe an opportunity, whether it's online or what, for you to connect with more folks and elders.
Mhm.
Because I get it. I understand, even just
Mhm.
from my cultural experience, how valuable those relationships are.
Yeah, I was supposed to be going back to Nova Scotia in December, and I was gonna like plan to make some visits, but then I got a phone call today that I'm getting a gender affirming care procedure in December, so we'll have to delay that trip.
Merry Christmas, honey.
But I am looking forward to, in a few weeks, going to Montreal for the Two Spirit Symposium,
Yeah.
and getting to talk to more people there. And
That's going to be so fun.
Mhm.
And like healing, amazing,
Mhm.
all of it. But you're also going to have a lot of fun.
Mhm.
All right, baby. We have the last section of our interview here before our time with you is wrapped. It's gone by so fast, but we have to. I feel like we have to have a little bit more time talking about trans rights YEG. So maybe are there any challenges, which I can imagine the answer, but any challenges with the work?
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me, and this might come off as a surprise to some people, I feel a lot of guilt with my work.
Okay.
I
Okay.
feel like for a while, from like January 2024 to November 2024, before the legislation was actually tabled and eventually passed, I was able to foster a lot of hope. People thought that through the petitions we were signing, through the letters we were writing, through the protests we were doing, that maybe we could stop this.
Mhm.
And I feel a lot of guilt a lot of the time that I couldn't stop this, but also that I got people's hopes up that maybe we could.
Yeah.
And I know that that is not my cross to bear. I know that I am not the reason we have anti-trans legislation, and hope is like the antidote to despair. So without it, we'd be in a much worse place. But I still do feel a lot of guilt for that. That is the biggest struggle I have. And it makes it hard to accept praise for the work that I've done. Because I'm like, I don't want to be doing this work. I don't want to have to live in a world where this work has to happen.
And I think it also, to me, like illuminates though how personally vested you are, both in the work, but more so your community, right? Like you wouldn't feel that responsibility and that guilt if you didn't care as much as you do.
Absolutely. Like I care so much. One moment in particular that I keep thinking about was the first of, so I had the first rally in February, and I was like, we have until November until this is being tabled. I
Yeah.
need to keep people in the fight until then.
Yeah.
Like momentum's gonna drop off as this isn't being discussed in the public eye. How do we keep it going?
Yeah.
And my plan was, if I can build a closer knit community, then when people are tired of fighting for themselves, they have somebody to look to and say, I love you enough to carry the torch for you. And one of the first events that I did was a family social with the hope of trans people coming together, or people who had trans people in their family coming together, and parents of trans kids getting to talk to one another and build peer networks.
So
Trans kids,
important.
like trans kids getting to build those networks. And one parent had like said to me that day, like, I feel like my kid is a kid and not a trans kid for the first time since they came
Oh
out.
my gosh,
And
Rowan.
I know. And then I saw that parent again at a New Year's Eve party, end of 2024. And they were like, I need you to know that my kid had people come to their birthday party for the first time. And it was the kids that this kid met at the social.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so like, I can't stop these bills, but I can make a kid have a birthday party.
Literally, I'm like, ugh.
I know, like, isolation is so hard. Like, we've had a few youth in Fort McMurray die by suicide over the last year and a bit, and it's heartbreaking to see that, like, we're losing young people because they feel so alone. So to know that I could have a hand in this community that this young person now has, and that their family has been really rewarding.
Bestie, just can I give you a hug? Like, I'm sorry. Just I have 2 audience questions for
Beautiful.
you. So the first one is they want to know about the team. Do you run TransRightsYEG alone or with a team?
Primarily alone.
A lone wolf.
Definitely there are people who help.
Yeah.
Like, I have great folks when it comes to like organizing protests who I call on, like my friends Rain, my friend Kaz, my friend Ren. There are many people who like help me bounce things off, like idea wise, my friend Chris, but primarily the like content creation, the organizing, the news engagements, the like the writing, the trainings, the consultation. It's primarily a one-man show with some help.
Yeah. All right. You do it all. You do the TikTok, you do the content, the amazing sign. It is Rowan, besties, with some amazing help. But then your second question is, this one is kind of cool, kind of sweet. It's what contacts have been the most helpful to you in amplifying your work?
Definitely Celeste Trianon out of Montreal. Celeste is an absolutely incredible human being. She is doing a lot of similar work to what I'm doing, just in Montreal. And we both have relatively like large audiences on our platform. So we do a lot of collaboration, but also she is a lawyer. So I get to talk to somebody who understands law from like a very like law
from a law
background.
perspective.
Understands law from
She's
law.
a lawyer? Yeah.
And so she has been an incredible connection. Also, It Gets Better Canada has been an
Love
incredible relationship to build.
I've had fun working with them in the
yes.
past. They're great.
I'm on their Youth Advisory Council for 2024-2025. And the opportunities that I've had through them and the connections I've been able to bridge through them has been wonderful. As well, QCU in Calgary, so Queer Citizens United, has also been a really great shoulder to be able to tap. They're a wonderful group doing amazing work there as well.
And I love like being able to hear about the supports that you have received from these folks, but then amplifying that these are other resources that people can tap into and find. So go check out all of those. But Diva, that was pretty much everything. I think we crushed it.
Yay!
Is there anything else? Because we're running a bit short on time.
Yes.
But is there anything else that you wanted to touch on or share? Go for it.
The one thing that I wanted to say is, while I'm doing a lot of the behind the scenes work, TransRightsYEG would not be possible without people engaging.
Yeah.
TransRightsYEG would not be possible. A protest can't happen if people don't come.
Yeah.
A letter writing campaign can't happen if people don't write. So to every single person who has seen themselves in this fight and has decided to get involved and support the work that I'm doing, or felt inspired to start some of their own work, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, you are making a difference. You are enabling me to continue. And for every person who wants to do something to make a difference, you can. And I trust you to do it.
I have two last questions. One's more of a favor.
Okay.
But it involves looking in this camera. And if there's anything that you want to say to queer and specifically trans Albertans who might be watching, go for it.
Yes. So this is going to sound a little unorthodox to begin, but bear with me.
I'm bearing. Yep.
I have a tramp stamp of a Molotov cocktail in a testosterone bottle. And that's because
so cool.
my transness is volatile in a positive way. Transness is something that upsets the structures of the world that we live in. And your transness has the power, just like a Molotov cocktail does, to be soared through the air and bring down. And it's so easy to feel like transness is something that has to be kept small, or that transness is something wrong, or that you did something wrong to end up this way. But the way that you are is how the world needs to move forward. We need to move forward with more transgression. We need to move forward with more freedom, more liberation, and your transness is how we make it happen. So do not give up on yourself. Do not give up on the people you love.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I think that was so beautifully said. And now your last thing that I would like is if, again, you could look into that camera and say, my name is Rowan and you are watching Queer in Alberta. You can give it your Disney Channel flair, but there you go.
My name is Rowan and you are watching Queer in Alberta.
Hey, that's it. I guess the only other thing is, where can the people find you on social media? And then we are done.
You can follow me on Instagram at trans.rights.yeg. If you just search TransRightsYEG on Google, it'll come up. Or dad.bodrod.
Babe.
I do have a personal account, but I probably won't follow or accept your follow.
I won't follow you back.
That's for me. That's my enrichment enclosure.
Yes. Well, definitely go check out all of these amazing things Rowan is doing, whether it's catching a show with DadbodRod, who is my bias, love him to death, or any of those events that he listed in Wood Buffalo Pride, as well as TransRightsYEG. There are ways that you can get involved, stay activated, and I'm just so happy that you came onto the show. You graced my space with the presence and all of your thoughts and wisdom, and I just had the best time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cheers, skis, bestie. One last go. Mwah. That's it. Cold tea. Warm. Cold. Fruity.
Hey, 5 seconds. I got math dyslexia.
Coming up next on Queer in Alberta.
But I think one of the things that excited me about coming back was sort of pushing against this idea of like what is or who is an Albertan.
Yes.